Coming through the little touristy welcome area here right now, the last day. This is one of the more fascinating sites, I think, of Israel that a lot of people don't get to, and sort of grieving that this thing is all about to end. It's been a huge journey coming on the other side of the world to look at stuff that very few people get to see and really feel stretched in so many ways. Very few people ever get to come over here, let alone pastors, teach from here. Yeah, it all comes down to this, the final hurrah.
Second Corinthians 3:15-18. Even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil covers their hearts. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit.
Oh, hey. Well, welcome to the conclusion of real encounters with God. You know, Crossroads has been a little over 20 years old, and one of the defining threads that's gone through our church, and we try to get to people over and over and over again, is the idea of freedom. God wants you to be free. And actually, it's a weird thing that a lot of people don't want to get serious with God because they think it's going to bring more rules, more restrictions, and even more bondage. God is about bringing you out of bondage. In fact, the 10 Commandments, which if you can say, those are rules because when we do those things, our life gets better. But the preamble to the 10 Commandments is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of bondage. I just believe outside of relationship with God, and specifically relationship with God through Jesus, we are in bondage. We naturally do things that God doesn't want us to do, and this brings pain on us. This confines us, or somebody else does something that puts us in a place of confinement. Today, the site that we're going to go to is a really interesting one. It's an unusual one. It's called Tel Dan. And you're saying, Tel Dan what? No, it's called Tel Dan. Tel Dan. It's a place where a bunch of different things have happened over the course of the history of the Bible. In fact, in terms of history, this is a very interesting place because it's the border of Israel, and it's been there for 3,000 years. It's the oldest border, as far as we know, in the history of the world, and it's been that way for 3,000 years. In fact, it's so unusual that people in Israel actually believe this land is cursed, that there's a curse on this very land that we're going to walk through and learn from and encounter God through today. So today's big idea is related to freedom. I know that's something all of us like. I don't know if it's a value that all people everywhere do, but I know in America, that's our deal. Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And we define freedom as no one telling me what to do, me able to do anything I want to all the time, all the day long. Actually, this is an ancient human value. It goes as far back as the ancient people of Israel, and this specific site, which was about people trying to get freedom, and really it was a false freedom, wasn't free at all. This system of an altar, a place where it's known as the high place, where you would go up on top and do the things that you wanted to do to sacrifice to your highest God that you defined, that made you feel better about you because that made you feel free. We're going to dig into that in this historic place today. I think you're going to be really, really struck by how ancient people did profound things that hurt them, and we do things that profoundly hurt us as well. So let's go from that ancient place to a personal place. Let's check in with a person who's actually been connecting with God in really, really cool ways. His name is Michael. He's been around Crossroads for a while now. He's a key leader in younger guys, building into them, doing things all over our church and also inside of our city. He does a lot of key things. He works with Cincinnati Works, which enables people to actually find employment so that they can get out of poverty. And no matter how great his life is right now, he remembers what it was like when he went after false gods. He went from being around false gods to being in freedom now. So let's go check in with him.
So Michael, in March of 2015, you had a real encounter with God. Why don't you tell me about that?
Things that just kind of were going bad. I just knew I needed to do something different. And so I literally crashed. I was in trouble at work. Things weren't going very well. Marriage was failing. Things were crashing around me. Up to that point, we had lost a child to stillbirth, just like all coming at me. And so I left the house and I was at my mom's house, and I was done. I had no idea what to do, where I was gonna go. For the longest I've been chasing this thing. And as I come to realize now, it was chasing acceptance. I wanted to be accepted. And at that moment, in that basement, it was just like, it literally died. It was done. And I had nothing else to chase. And so I had no idea what to do.
Acceptance in some ways was like a God for you. Mm-hmm. So talk about that.
Well, my whole life, just family in general, starting off, I was the third child. I had two older sisters, and forever it just kind of felt like I was the black sheep. Me and my father weren't really connected. He was in the house, but we weren't connected. It was like we were almost strangers in the same house. Mm-hmm. I was trying to find ways to get his attention. Then sports kicked in, and so if I do better at sports, then he's gonna come around more. So then sports replaced that acceptance, I guess, in a sense, where it started feeding me that fame. The dynamic between my father didn't really change that much. And then that's when it kind of transitioned into street life, and I got involved in, the drugs, I got involved in violence, gang violence, I got involved in, you name it, I was doing it. And so that became that feeding process. And so that became what I was chasing. And then after college got done and football kind of ended, I started chasing the dream of professional football. Never worked out just because I was still trying to find what was going to feed me, because just nothing ever fulfilled that void. I dabbled and dabbled here and there, and then I said, okay, well, education is going to be it. I'm going to learn, I'm going to have all the degrees in the world, and I'm going to take what I want at that point. In each phase, I kept trying to chase this acceptance, this God. I was chasing it. Because of that, just compromising values and morals, just compromising everything, just trying to go after what I would want to take. Like it never turned out, it was just every day was a pursuit of something. And like I said, it just is empty. It was a void that I could never feel. And it was always like, it's like pouring water in a glass, there's a hole in it. Like I can never get this thing full. And every time I get ready to take a drink, it's empty. It was just like crazy. So I couldn't figure out, what to do, and that's kind of what I felt like it was, what was going on, so.
What emotions would you put to that feeling? You've been chasing this God is dead. How did it feel in that basement? What were you feeling in that moment?
Fear. I was fearful, definitely, was scared. It was very emotional because I didn't know who I was at that time. Like if somebody had asked me at that moment, who are you? I would not have been able to say anything.
Because your identity was stripped.
It was gone, yeah. And I Google searched Crossroads, and I didn't know where to start, who to call, and I popped up with it was kind of like a ministry line or helpline, and I called it, and that's when I called, and Nick answered the phone.
Wow. So Nick was a volunteer prayer, kind of pastoral care person for us. Nick picks up the phone, and what happened?
Just a regular conversation. It wasn't about, how can I help you that much? It was more about, hey, how you doing today? What's going on? I was telling him, like, I'm just lost. I don't know what to do. And that's when Nick was kind of stepped in and was like, well, let me tell you a little about why I do what I do. And so he kind of told me why he wanted to be on the other end of that line and why he wanted to be available, told me a little about his story. And by him being open and vulnerable and telling me his story, it kind of set me at ease. And so I was able to tell him a little about what I was going through, and then we just connected.
So Michael was looking good, but as he was saying, he was in a place of bondage. That's the funny thing about bondage. You really can't tell what's going on underneath the surface with the naked eye, because we put off this front that everything is good, everything is beautiful, everything is all good, happy, happy, joy in my life. No one wants to portray I'm hurting. No one wants to portray that I'm actually having a secret addiction or I actually have a secret false God that's ruling my life. We work really, really hard to not show that front, or we don't even realize we have that front at all, but we just go on our nice, happy, merry way. Image isn't always reality. And so in this place, it is an image of beauty. It's an image of lushness. It's an image of water, of greenery, of hills, but it doesn't necessarily portray the reality of bondage that's always been linked with Tel Dan. So, Suriel, tell us a little bit about what we're going to see today. What's going on around us?
Okay, we just came to one of the most beautiful places in Israel, both nature, history, archaeology, but we'll find here also a very interesting biblical things to learn from the past, how we can apply it for our days today.
Now, I'm hearing some rushing waters. What is that?
Well, in a moment you will see, we are actually visiting now the spring of Dan, which is one of 3 springs that are creating the Jordan River eventually. Now see that.
Part of the headwaters of the Jordan River, Dag. I know this is also a significant archaeological site relative to King David. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, okay, first of all, as much as we understand from the archaeological side, there are at least 22 different layers, different periods that people were staying here. And during the kingdom, I would say already before David, the Israelites moved here. We will talk about that, of course, the tribe of Dan. And then here, related to David himself, it is the only place outside the Bible that the name David was found when they were excavating here in that site, which is an amazing thing, because if you think of it, to have a king like David that you don't find any records around except for the Bible, people would say and doubt, is it real? Was there really a king named David, or is it just a fake story?
Oh gosh, this is beautiful, beautiful water here.
When we talk about water, this is one of the only places that I can allow you to drink, straight from the spring.
I did that. I don't know you if you've ever drunk real water the way God provided it out of the ground, but I did. It was awesome, that water right there. I don't know if Montezuma ever made it over to Israel or not, but if he did, I got none of his revenge.
This spring, the spring of Dan, is important for 3 main reasons. I would say some of them related to the water, some of them related to the region that we are in. The first thing is the amount of water that we have here. As we talked before, the Jordan River is built from 3 different rivers or springs, which one of them is the Dan. The 2 others are called Banyas, and another one is called Chatzbani. And the amount of water that we have in the spring of Dan is equal to the amount of water in the 2 others together. So first of all, the amount of water is a great amount, the biggest in the Middle East, and important. The second thing, as we said, is the quality of the water, the best water that we have in Israel.
What's the significance of water, just water period, physically and spiritually?
Okay, physically, life. Anywhere you will walk around in the land of Israel and anywhere else in the world, people would always search for water. You can't build anything, you can't survive without water.
What does this represent spiritually? So many times there's something in the physical world that represents something in the spiritual world. Are there correlations there?
Yeah, again, I would say that Jesus, speaks about water. We see that the Israelites in the desert were crying for water, and water can change people's minds, to even, want to go back to Egypt, in a sense. When you say, we want to have our food, we want to have our physical things that we can relate to, and not, in a sense, trust in God that He will take us and bring us the right water in the right place. So, yes, water definitely in the spiritual matter, it's a source of life for our spirits too. And Jesus, He's the one that will give us, right, the true water that would fill us, and He can bring us alive from moments in our life that we feel,
Just kidding.
almost.
Yes, so water's all that. That's good. Where are we relative to everything right now?
Okay, we are located at the northern part of Israel. Just behind us and around us, I would say, we are in the northern side. And north to us, we have the border with Lebanon, which is just behind these trees, basically. We have the border. And a bit to the east, we have Mount Hermon, which is the highest mountain that we have in Israel. This is also might be the place that the transfiguration took place, close to us.
Where Jesus was with His disciples and He
Yes.
appeared in His heavenly glory,
Yes.
which they hadn't seen before.
Yes, because Caesarea Philippi is a few minutes from here. So it's all together up here at the north. So we have Lebanon north to us. We have Syria to the east. So we are actually at the border area.
So we're sort of at the crossroads right now of where political tension exists in the world.
Yes, we are completely true. And if you would just drive, 25 minutes up here to the top of the Golan Heights, you might even see and hear some cannons and, shootings there between the different, I would say, groups in Syria. We can do that if you like.
Well, so you're trying to measure your words a bit, I understand, as a Jew, because the only thing you understand, your perspectives as a Jew are maybe different than others' perspectives, but I find it fascinating that a place that was so significant way back when is a place today that is still significant and especially politically significant. Do you see any spiritual reasons why this was a huge spot way back when and it still is today?
Yeah, first of all, I will start with saying that here in the Middle East, and especially I see it as the land of Israel, it was always a source for, conflicts and battles and wars. And as much as I believe, as long as Jesus will not return, it will continue. We can try and find solutions and peace agreements and so on, but it will never really last, for long term. And also around us, we are surrounded with countries and with people that fight each other all the time, killing each other. They kill themselves more than they kill even us, or even that we fight with them. They kill themselves. So it's a terrible situation here in the Middle East. And I believe that, again, it's a spiritual battle.
Well, that might be a good segue to go from the macro to the micro. So now we're going to get into talking about what is the micro spiritual wars that happen inside us with our sort of official teaching for today. So let's get ready to get it done. Unlike many of the places we've been in Israel, this place is environmentally beautiful and lush. There's greenery everywhere. There's water all over the place. And in the midst of this beauty, there's something spiritually stanky that takes place. It happens inside of the tribe of Dan. Now in America, we have the 50 states. In Israel, you would have the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes of Israel were the sons of the patriarch Jacob. They were his sons. And so the tribe of Dan was his son and everybody on his downline. And it's no wonder that why the tribe of Dan would want to be in this place, given how beautiful and lush it was, but yet something terrible took place to them spiritually. Let's check it out.
Deuteronomy 5, 6 through 10. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments.
So the tribe of Dan is one of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And as we saw all that water down there, it's one of the headwaters of the Jordan River. The Jordan River is very significant for the promised land that the nation of Israel is striving for, because most of their inheritance is west of the Jordan River. And Dan has their apportionment that's supposed to be theirs, but it's a tough place. The Philistines are there, and they're at war with them. One of the tribe of Dan, ancient guy by the name of Samson, you might have heard his story, has a long hair and all that kind of stuff. Nonetheless, they're not happy with their place. And they find out about this beautiful place where water's coming up out of the ground. It's kind of high and mountainous. They say, let's go take that. God didn't tell them to take it, but they decided to use their own might. They take up weapons, they come up to this area, and they go to war, and they wipe people out, and they set this place up. And what do? They don't set up some nice, happy, clappy, thank you, God, you're so good, we love you service. No, they set up a place for idol worship, the exact thing that God knows and told them you should never, ever, ever do. The very beginning of the 10 Commandments, you shall have no other gods before me. You won't create any idols. They set up a place just for that. Just to worship other gods, just to do the very things that God said not to have. And so what turns from a place to get away from the difficulty, a place where there's more beauty, a place of freedom, ends up being a place of spiritual bondage. Whenever you go your own way instead of the way of God, there is always bondage, especially when you do the things that God has specifically told you not to do. This isn't like something that hurts God's pride necessarily, like, oh, I feel so bad, I feel so offended, you didn't do what I wanted. He does feel offended. But in terms of them, they begin to lose their freedom because they go places where God doesn't want. They start setting up sacrifices to false gods. In this place, my gosh, as they unearth this place and dig around, they find more and more fascinating things. Here we see an altar. This is where there would be animal sacrifices right here. You can see this metal frame. This metal frame reproduces where the actual stones would have been around that. And you see those 4 corners. Those are the 4 horns of the altar. Those as well would have been stone. And you also would see, this is an amazing place, right? You'd have smoke arising. You would have the burning of flesh, which would smell amazing, like massive barbecue that would go all over the place. Blood would run down steps, and it would actually get caught inside of this little container here. And then they found underground pipes that would disperse the blood and have it leach out into the ground. One of the reasons it's believed that priests were always men, just one of the theories why priests in the Old Testament were always men and not women, is because the strength that would have taken to take a calf, to take an animal, and come up steps and manhandle that on top of an altar and burn it, it would have been a grueling thing. I tell you, if you were a priest, you were a manly guy who at the end of your duties of the day, you were worn out and you were tired. This is the place that sacrifices took place. It's a place that mimicked the real sacrifices that God wanted to take place actually in Israel. We're going to talk about that next. So much stuff has happened at this site and around this area. I can't even go into all of it, but there's some stuff that's profound for us today. The nation of Israel was in constant conflict with one another, not just with people who were outside them, but also internally. There was, in essence, a civil war. There was the northern kingdom that was known as Israel, and there was the southern kingdom that was known as Judah. Judah had the anointed king. His name was Rehoboam. He's the son of Solomon. But in the midst of this civil war, Jeroboam is now trying to get as much glory and as much people unto himself. And to do that, he's in massive competition with Rehoboam and the southern kingdom. That's where Jerusalem is. That's where the temple is. So it's always this sort of like tit for tat. You're doing this, so I'm going to do that. I want to do this, so you don't have that. So many things that are here mimic and mirror what's actually in Jerusalem. We've got sacrifices right here. They did excavations and found the sacrifices are of animals that are kosher. In other words, the same animals that are being sacrificed all the way over in Jerusalem, in the temple, are the same sacrifices that are happening here. In other words, what Jeroboam is saying is, you don't need Rehoboam. You don't need to go over there. I'm going to give you everything that I have here. Don't leave me. Please don't. Why you want to leave me? Don't leave me. Stay here. Boy, this is a part of our spiritual heritage as human beings that we see exhibited here. Part of what we're in bondage to and not feeling free of is we're in constant competition with somebody else. Jeroboam was in competition with Rehoboam, and we're in competition perhaps with our siblings to see who gets our parents' affection the most. We're in competition with people at work, and we can't celebrate when someone has a good day at work or a good project completed because we feel like they're going to take some of the glory from us or potential accolades in the future. She doesn't like her because she has a better hair day or a better body. He doesn't like him because he's higher on the corporate ladder than I am at the same age. And we do this internal measuring, internal competition. And it's not just about good, healthy competition. It's about bondage. It's about not being free to be who we are, to have our emotions dictated by how well somebody else is. Let me show you something else. It's kind of an interesting twist on this. I'm going up higher, 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 higher. I'm going up to the highest place. The phrase high place is a very significant phrase in the Bible. Let me tell you about it. So this whole series, I've been in this map room with a bunch of inanimate objects while Chuck, our campus pastor of Oakley, has been with real people, experiencing stuff. And every time I see him, I just realize he's such a good dude. I wish I could spend more time with him.
Brian, I've been here the whole time.
You have? Oh, man.
Man, have you seen what's in this box?
I have. It is unbelievable, isn't it? So the tribe of Dan coming up here in this area, that was a long time ago. You'd think that was just interesting history. No, what happens in the past is affecting our present and will affect the future. That thing, thousands of years ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, is affecting this place right here. This was and is a battle zone. I'm with trenches from the mid-20th century of the nation of Israel fighting against their enemies. You could just imagine people going up and down here with all kinds of guns. In fact, this is still a militarized zone. I have that mountain, the top of that mountain, right there, a couple miles away. That's Syria. Yes, Syria. Yes, ISIS is watching me right now. They even know who's watching this. They're going to come and get you. They are. They're going to kill you dead. Americans are like the most fearful people at all. I know some people going, oh my gosh, Syria, you can't be by Syria. Yeah, I am actually. I've actually been here quite a number of times and they've never gotten me. America is really not the land of the free. We're the land of the fear. We're the most paranoid people in the face of the earth, in the history of the earth, I actually believe. But no, seriously, in all reality, that is Syria. Also got Lebanon over here. It's believed that in this area with these countries, here in the focal point, there's 100,000 missiles pointed right here, right now. Gosh. Yeah, you know, things that happened in your past, maybe that your parents did, maybe set you on a course for where you are right now. Your present of where you are right now has been affected by what you did in the past and what others who are affecting your life have done in the past. It's restricting your freedom. The nation of Israel has had its freedom restricted because of the nation of Dan's decision and other Israeli decisions for thousands of years that has often led them away from the purposes and plans of God. And it's the same way with you and I. Our decisions have affected negatively where we are right now. And so some things are like underground. We buried them, tried to get them away. There's an underground bunker right here with a little vent hole. We think, well, if no one can see it, if I can't see it, then I'm okay. No, it's buried, but it's there. You're still getting smothered. That thing you did back in college, that thing you did on Friday night, it's still there. And unless you deal with it, your future is not going to be what it should be. I'm up here on the high area. It's actually the high places. In the Bible, there's always this phrase of the high places. What would take place is people would go all the way up on the highest mountain because they believed that they were getting closer to the gods. So their worship would be up on the high places. And this is with us today. There's always something special about being up on the high place. My house, I put the most important things up high. When my kids were down crawling around their hands and knees, I didn't want my wallet down on the coffee table because they might get it and disperse the money. So I put it up on top of the entertainment center. I had a dog he was a great dog, but he had this chewing thing. I wouldn't want my glasses to be chewed, so I would stick them all the way up on top of stuff, right? Right now, on some of my high places is my shotgun. Yes, I have a shotgun. I make sure I mention that because if you ever come to my house, I will jack you up. Know that. Do not. I got a shotgun, and this won't make you feel good at all, especially those of you who aren't gun owners. But I've actually lost my shotgun before. I don't even know where it is. The reason is I put it up on the high place, and I've got this one built-in. It has got a little lip, and it's up there. Of course, it's not loaded, so relax. I don't lose a loaded gun. Now, if you might break into my house, it's always loaded. Just think that it's always loaded, and you will die if you come to my house. But up on top, and this thing, I forgot I was up there because it's on the high place. I couldn't see this. Oftentimes, our places that are secretive and are important to us and restrict our freedom are all the way up on the high place. That was the high place right there. People don't know about it, but you know about it because it's your idol. It's the false god that's important to you. Some of us, our high places is money. It's the highest place in our life. It's the most important thing. And so when the economy goes down, oh my gosh, we're crushed because God has come down, because it's our God. For others of us, our high place is body beautiful. It's our age. And that's why every birthday from 30 beyond is an awful birthday, because DNA is fighting against us and we're sagging, we're coming down. Our high place is being torn down because you can't be as beautiful at 41 as you were at 29, at least not without a lot of money. And then we all know because we can tell. Or it might be your family. It could be a good thing. These high places could be good things, but if it's above God, it's a bad thing. For many of us, our family life is a high place. It's our God. It's the most important thing. So Lib and I, we have our kids who are getting out of the house. Our youngest daughter has graduated from high school. She's in college right now. And we're empty nesters. And let me tell you, it's awesome. It's awesome. For some people, it's like massive crisis. My gosh, if kids are out of the house, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's because kids have been the thing that we've been revolving our whole life around. They're actually the high place all the way up on the mountain. And when they're gone, we lose our identity. I tell you, anything God throws my way that's new, I'm all in all the time. I'm great for new stuff because He's in my high place. And when there's something that's a crisis for somebody else, like a crisis in the economy, I see an opportunity for people to get rooted in God. When some people see a crisis that my kids are all gone, I see an opportunity to do stuff that I couldn't do. My kids are there and follow God in different ways. This is how God gives us freedom. I'll tell you what, anything else you put on the high place, if it's not God, it's going to restrict you. Your emotional well-being is going to be tied to whether or not it says you're okay. It's going to box you in. It's going to bury you. It's going to put you in trenches that you're going to walk up and down in constricted places, where God brings us to the open places, the open places of freedom. That's what God wants for you. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. That's what the New Testament says. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Not where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's religion. Not where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's morality. But where the Spirit of the Lord is freedom. And where the Spirit of the Lord is where God is in the highest place. You put God in the highest place of your life, you'll have a freedom that other people who haven't will never understand. That's what God wants for you, and that's what you've got to want for you. So when we've got these secret places that are more important than God, we end up going underground with them. And it actually hurts our restriction. We actually have less mobility in our life, less freedom. If you're at Crossroads anywhere, or obviously at a Crossroads site right now, earlier on, we said go get something to bind yourself up with. If you're at a Crossroads site, you got zip ties. Let's go ahead and pull those out. Or at anywhere, let's pull out our restrictive devices. Got this little rope here. What I want to do is just put those around your hand. I want you to bind your hands. If you need to reach over to somebody beside you to zip tie each other, that's okay. If you got to use your teeth to get it, I'll just give you a moment. All right, this is a physical representation of a spiritual and emotional reality that we have, of losing our freedom, of being bound, of being restricted. And we put ourselves into this. We put ourselves in. It was our choice to do this. And when we go after ways that aren't God's ways, that are our ways, this is what we end up with. Now, do you want this dealt with? I do. I do. And actually, there's a place that's right beside here that's going to give us the answers to why we're like this and how to get free. So just as the tribe of Dan was chasing after false gods, so was Michael, who we were with earlier on. Let's go and check back in with him and see how he goes from a place of bondage to false gods to a place of freedom.
So Nick picked up the phone right here at this table. That's why we're here.
Yes.
Because when you started talking to Nick, that encounter with God, it just took you on a different path of life. So how long do you think you guys talked?
We were on the phone probably about an hour or something, maybe an hour and a half, something like that. We were on the phone a good minute. We got done. He was like, I want to give you my number so you can call me anytime. If you want to exchange, I know I got some things going on. I'd be more than happy to invite you to those, but, let me know what you want to do. I just gave him a call like, hey, you know what? I really appreciate, just doing what you did and being there for me, because I never had anybody there for me. So I really appreciate that. And that's when he invited me, to his Bible study. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing about it was ironic is that instead of him giving me the address, he gave me the address to his house and said, hey, I'm gonna drive you there. So
you met him here?
Yeah, I met him here at this
here.
house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he came in here, sat at this table for a little bit until we got ready to go. And I just thought that was so powerful because I'm like, this stranger doesn't know me, And on top of that, just where I grew up at, blacks and whites, we've always kind of butted heads. And for him to invite me to his home and not know me, that was just crazy. And then for him to want to drive me, you know what I'm saying? So it was just kind of like, it was scary at times, but it was kind of like, this is kind of different. We drove over to his buddy's house in Oakley. And we went to Bible study, and it was the ironic thing about it, we walked in the house and it was like 6 white guys. But what was so powerful was that when we sat down, they all, handshakes, we all told, talking, they just accepted me with open arms. And it was just like, hey, what do you need? Anything like that. They were just so inclusive. And it was just so, it was like, I didn't know what acceptance was, but that's kind of what it felt like.
Wow. So as you're driving home from that whole night, what were you thinking?
I was just like, it was just unreal. I just couldn't believe it. It felt like a dream. These white guys accept me as their own and enter their home. And when I've never got accepted by my family, it's like, it was crazy. It was just like, it was a dream. I just couldn't believe it. And I was just, as I was driving home, just like, what just happened,
What's God doing today to help you kind of rest in who you are in Him and not seek acceptance elsewhere?
Yeah, I came in on the end of the wolf pack when I started coming to church, and then the Brave Journey happened. And Nick was like, hey, look, I want you to be in our group. From that, we went into the daddy issues, and that was the next series I went into, and that just kind of rocked my world. That allowed me to have that sense of peace with my father. And when I was able to do that, that's when kind of like the veil came off, I guess you could say, because it was like, I was able to finally say, I'm not mad at you anymore. I felt that sense of peace, that sense of freedom, and it was like, and I didn't really understand at the time, but I just felt different. And for the first time in my life, it was real. It was that true, you're talking about freedom, that was, I had been released from everything.
And where are you seeing freedom now?
Just in the way I approach things. When troubles come, I have faith now. Where before I would always try to do it myself and try to make it right, now I'm able to kind of sit back and say, I know you got something for me.
Right.
But when you know yourself in Christ, when you understand that who you are in Him, I'm a father, I'm a man of God, I'm a child of God, I'm a Christian. I'm His son, I'm loved, and it was just, that was just real. And so I was able to just kind of be able to feed that back into others. And now that to me is the most freeing, is that I'm able to feed that back out. And I would have never got there if it hadn't been for that phone call every day. It's just like, I just look forward to that adventure and the encounters that he has for me.
Because you know who your identity is. You know who your Father is.
Yes, exactly.
Back in the early 90s, there was a discovery, archaeology right here, that gave proof that King David actually existed. Said the household of David. It's crazy that the longer they dig around over here in the Middle East, the more stuff in the Bible is proved to be true. It's not the more they find in science, the less reliable the Bible is. The more they find through science, the more reliable the Bible is. This is a significant area right here. This actually would have been under the rule and authority, obviously, of the household of David, of King David. And then on his downline, as the kingdom would start to split and other kings would come, it would be under their authority. This is the city walls, the outside city walls that enter into where that ancient place was with the high place and the altar. Modern archaeology has enabled us to find this as one of the places you would enter the city, known as the city gates. This is an A++ site, no question. This place happened right here. And we also see a little bit about how archaeology takes place. You can see we've got a tree that's here. That tree came inside dirt over the last 100 or so years as dirt had filled this whole place. All plate comes in, and then the archaeologists come in, they start excavating, they start scraping away dirt. They find the city gate. They find the floor that people would walk to. Pretty cool, huh? As you would walk in, they then find this place that would have held a seat. This is the throne, or one of the many thrones that King Ahab would have sat on if he came to this part of his kingdom. And while he wasn't here, somebody who was the governor of the city or another authority, they would have been sitting here. And you also see a bench over here. This is where the city elders would be. This is more authorities inside of the city. And as you would enter, you'd be reminded, I'm coming under somebody else's authority. And this person would settle disputes, talk about taxes, tell them what should be and shouldn't be. But the main thing is, this is where the authority is. Or as South Park would say, where the authority is, the authority. So where the authority is, they would sit. Who's the authority in your life? Who is the ultimate authority? Who has the final say in your life? I know the answer to that, at least the default answer. The default answer is you do. That's what we do as human beings. That's part of why we're bound up. We're bound up because we don't want anyone telling us what to do. We don't want anyone giving us any rules, any instructions. We go our own way. And when we do that, we lose our mobility. We lose our spiritual mobility. The longer you're on the throne, the less mobility you will have in your life, the less power you'll have in your life, the less joy you'll have in your life. God needs to be on the throne of your life, or more specifically, Jesus needs to be on the throne of your life. The spiritually maturing person is also the spiritually free person. They're the person that says, I don't need to be in control. I'm going to actually get off the throne of my own life. And when we get off the throne of our own life, we have the ability to get outside of our shackles that I'm going to give you the ability to do in just a moment. We get off the throne, we have freedom. We have freedom. And it's not just getting off the throne, it's being before the ultimate one who is on the throne. I don't know if you've ever given your life to Christ before. First time I ever hit my knees was when I was 15 years old. It was on a cabin in the mountains of Pennsylvania. And I went on my knees and I asked Jesus into my life. I asked him forgiveness. I asked him to fill my life. I asked for his Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to come into my life. And I'll tell you, I was different moving out of there. I wasn't instantaneously changed in all ways, but I sensed more freedom. And that freedom from 15 or 16 years old keeps growing in me. The closer I come to Christ, the more I lower myself before him, the more freedom that I have. I want that for you. I want you to have freedom. I don't want you to have religion. I don't want you to have morality. I don't want you to have the American way. I want you to have freedom. For that to happen, you have to get to Jesus. You have to lower yourself and have him cut your cords, because he's the only one who can do that.
Who wants that freedom? Who wants that freedom? Because that's what Jesus does. Jesus breaks chains. Jesus sets people free. The only way to freedom is through Jesus. That's the story of my life. The story of my life is before I gave my life to Jesus, I was chained. I was chained by approval, and my worth and value was based on what other people thought about me. Before I gave my life to Jesus, I was chained by lust, and I had sexual deviancies that just broke me and threatened to break my marriage before it began. Before I came to Jesus, I was chained by fear and anxiety and worry, and the only way that I found freedom is through Jesus. What are your chains? You've got these zip ties on. If you're watching at home, you've got something that you bound yourself with. What's this representing right now? What's the thing that stands between you and freedom? I want you to know Jesus wants to break that chain. As I've been praying about this particular service, I feel like there are chains of false identities that we live in, and they're keeping us from freedom. Some of us have based our whole value and worth on being the smart kid, being the jock, being the cute girl. And I'm telling you, those are chains that are keeping you from experiencing the fullness of who you were created to be in God. Others of us, we believe that we're losers. We believe that we're worthless. We're believing that we're not worth loving. And those are keeping us from freedom. And I'm telling you, Jesus wants to set you free. He wants to break that chain of identity and give you a new identity in Him right now. That's what's on the line. That's what's on the line. And so I don't know what your chains are, but if you want freedom, I just want you to put your hands up like this. And I don't want you to do this just because you have a zip tie on. I don't want you to do this just because you have something that you've bound yourself with at home. If you really want the freedom that Jesus offers, then put your hands up like this. And I know for some of us, maybe this is the first time something clicked today and you realize, I've been doing the church thing a long time. I've been attending stuff a long time. I've been doing good things, but I've never surrendered my life to Jesus. I've never bowed a knee and said, Jesus, you can have my life. And I'm telling you, if today that clicked for you, I want to invite you to receive Jesus and to receive the freedom that only He can provide you. And for others of us, maybe we've bowed that knee, maybe we've said that prayer before, but we're recognizing there is still something in our lives we've not fully surrendered to Him. Jesus wants to set you free in this moment. And so whether you're doing this for the first time or whether you're doing this for the second, third, or fourth time, I want you to repeat this prayer after me if you want freedom. And this is just between you and Jesus. These are words that you're going to say out loud, but Jesus hears these words. He knows your heart. You can simply just say, Jesus, I give up. I've tried to find freedom in other places, but I know that only you can set me free. You died to set me free. You rose in power. And because of that, your spirit can live inside of me. Jesus, I receive you as my authority. Would you fill me with your spirit now? And would you give me the freedom that only you can? Amen. Amen. The first time I prayed that prayer and really surrendered to Jesus, there is something that changed in my life. But I had to continue to walk in freedom. And one of the things I love is we need other people to set us free. We don't get free on our own. But here's the beautiful thing. Jesus wants to set you free, and here's what free people do. Free people free other people. That's what free people do. Free people free other people. Jesus wants to set you free so you can be a free person that frees other people. So we're going to invite our volunteers to come down now. And as they come, they've got these scissors. They're going to free you up. And then you're going to turn to the next person next to you and you're going to free them up. And I'm telling you, this is not just a symbolic thing. I believe freedom is flowing through this room right now. I believe identities are different in this room right now. I believe free people in this room will leave this room and free other people right now because there's power in the name of Jesus. And as you get free, I want you to stand up. I love how this song says there's an army rising up. Let's be an army of people who receive the freedom Jesus offers and go out and spread it to the world.